Next up, we have Franz. Franz is the founding director of the Sephardic Heritage in D.C., a cultural diplomacy organization that builds intercultural bridges and promotes appreciation and understandings of the cultures, arts, and history of the Middle East, North Africa, the Iberian Peninsula, and Central and Western Asia. Franz has also published on topics of international and Jewish affairs and offers consulting to those seeking to learn more about Sephardic heritage. Much love and respect for you, Franz. Thank you, brother.
So, I am Jewish with roots in the Middle East and North Africa, and to be honest, with a different perspective on Israel from some of those who have spoken before me, but I'm here for the same reason you are. Inspired by my own underrepresented heritages and identities, I'm here with you to speak truth to power as white nationalists and their allies also gather today on the anniversary of last year's Unite the Right rally. They are marching here today because their ancestors came to this land as immigrants, or because they are immigrants. They are here today because of the First Amendment right of all Americans to speak freely and assemble peaceably regardless of the message. They are also gathering here today because of this nation's promise of liberty for all. Indeed, that liberty can be for a blessing or for a curse. I'm here to recall the American vision of liberty, a pure flame that inspired the founding fathers and the underrepresented to forge this great nation to be a blessing. It begins with speaking truth to power. On a hot, muggy afternoon on August 17th, 1790, George Washington arrived in Rhode Island by ship. 3 months after the legislature there voted 34 to 32 to ratify the new federal constitution, becoming the last state in the Union to do so, because there were long debates over the issue of religious freedom in this new nation. Many of Newport's Jewish population were Hispanic Jews who had come to America to escape centuries of persecution after having been forced to leave Spain in 1492 and 4 years later expelled from Portugal. At the time of Washington's visit to Newport, the states were debating the Bill of Rights with the First Amendment provision that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. In fact, one of the reasons for President Washington's visit was to gain support for the adoption of the Bill of Rights. Without those provisions, religious minorities questioned whether they would be allowed to practice their religion. Even tolerant Rhode Island's promise of free religious practice did not guarantee other civil rights for religious minorities. While Jews were free to worship, do business, and travel, we did not benefit from the political rights that came with citizenship, such as holding public office or voting like our white Anglo-Saxon Protestant neighbors. So a Sephardic Jew, Rabbi Gershom Mendes Seixas, decided to speak truth to power. He wrote a letter to George Washington that said, "Deprived as we are here too, therefore have been of the invaluable rights of free citizens, we now with a deep sense of gratitude to the almighty disposer of all events, behold a government erected by the majesty of the people, a government which to bigotry gives no sanction, to persecution no assistance, but generally affording to all liberty of conscience and immunities of citizenship, deeming everyone of whatever nation, tongue, or language equal parts of the great governmental machine." Implicitly, the letter invited President Washington to affirm that the new government would not give sanction to bigotry, nor assist persecution. Indeed, this country was blessed because the voice of power echoed the voice of truth. On August 21st, 1790, George Washington wrote in response to Rabbi Seixas, "The citizens of the United States of America have a right to applaud themselves for having given to mankind examples of an enlarged and liberal policy, a policy worthy of imitation. All possess alike liberty of conscience and immunities of citizenship. It is now no more that mere toleration is spoken of as if it was by the indulgence of one class of people that another enjoyed the exercise of their inherent natural rights. For happily, the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that we live under its protection, that those who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens in giving it on all occasions their effectual support." In 1790, during this exchange between President Washington and Rabbi Seixas, the addition of the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, was being debated. Because of Americans like Rabbi Seixas who spoke out against bigotry and persecution, it was adopted on December 15th, 1791. Fellow Americans, I am here today in the spirit of Rabbi Seixas and others who have spoken truth to power, to remind America of its true potential for greatness by recalling the words of President George Washington, which echo the voice of Rabbi Seixas. To bigotry, no sanction. To persecution, no assistance. Say it with me. To bigotry, no sanction. To persecution, no assistance. To bigotry, no sanction. To persecution, no assistance. In the Torah portion for this week in Shofetim, or Judges, there is great immorality in the land, and the people feel hopeless. What do we do without the voice of God and the great fire that we experience on Sinai? The Torah responds with a promise that God will send prophets. A prophet is someone who speaks truth to power. This is our flame. I'm here with you to remind America that there's a great fire that still burns on Liberty Island. A pure flame of liberty, the same liberty that Rabbi Seixas spoke into being. To bigotry, no sanction. To persecution, no assistance. That flame will not die because we will not be silenced. Sephardic woman Emma Lazarus, the great-great-niece of Rabbi Seixas, advocated for immigrants. Lazarus had spent her life writing about anti-Semitism and ethnic prejudice, and the 1880s became a fierce advocate for Jewish refugees fleeing massacre in Russia. For this reason, she strongly supported a homeland for the Jewish people. Her words are enshrined on the Statue of Liberty as follows: "Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air bridge harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these the homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. It would be Emma Lazarus's words that decades later would come to define the American vision of liberty, not by powerful brazen giants and conquering limbs, but a mighty woman with a torch. Fellow Americans, we lift our lamp without fear today. A pure flame, the American vision of liberty. Ironically, white nationalists are marching here today because their ancestors came to this land as immigrants, or because they are immigrants. They are here today because of the First Amendment right of all Americans to speak freely and assemble peaceably, regardless of the message. Ironically, they're here because of Americans like Rabbi Seixas, who spoke truth to power, and in so doing helped President Washington to ratify the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of the press, and freedom of religion. They take, but do not give. They threaten the very foundations of the liberties that they exercise without shame. Ironically, they light the torches of hate from liberty's flame while seeking to distort the American vision. But we still speak truth to power. There's one flame to rule them all. It is not the flame of any racist power, but the flame of truth. The flame of a mighty woman with a torch. You too, white nationalists, were an exile that came to this land. In the Torah portion that we read in the synagogue yesterday, Moses said, "See, I place before you a blessing and a curse." Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who served as the chief rabbi of the United Hebrew Congregations of the British Commonwealth, once said that throughout Deuteronomy, Moses keeps saying, "Don't think your future will be determined by forces outside your control. You are indeed surrounded by forces outside your control, but what matters is how you choose. Everything else will follow from that. Choose the good, and good things will happen to you. Bad choices create bad people, who create bad societies, and in such societies, in the fullness of time, liberty is lost." What choices are we making with our liberty today, as individuals, as a nation? We urge our fellow Americans out of love to put out the strange fire of hate, because it is not in the service of this country. It does not make America great. It never has. It never will. There is another Sephardic American woman named Maud Nathan, who was an outspoken critic of anti-Semitism and racial prejudice. I'll let you look her up. I'll conclude. Maud Nathan saw herself as a victim of discrimination, both as a woman and as a Jew. Still, she took pride in the fact that she had been able to make her protest count, because she persisted. She devoted her life to advocating the American ideals of freedom, liberty, mutual respect, and social justice. Maud Nathan also chose liberty's flame. Today we gather because we too as Americans choose the blessing of liberty's pure flame, not the curse. We speak this truth to power. Theodore Parker said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I believe that ultimately there is one flame to rule them all, liberty's pure flame, echoing Maud Nathan's words. I'm not here to antagonize or humiliate, but I make a choice to stretch out my hand to every American in the spirit of love, peace, and cooperation. Let us embrace the true greatness of America, which is not a skin color, but all of you, all of us working together for the good, echoing the voices of America's prophets, and eschewing hate. To bigotry, no sanction. To persecution, no assistance. One more time with me. To bigotry, no sanction. To persecution, no assistance. Thank you.